The Madison County Commission voted today to seek permission to remove the Confederate statue outside the courthouse in downtown Huntsville. All 7 commissioners spoke briefly in support of moving the statue before the vote. Kenny Anderson, the Multicultural Affairs Officer for the City of Huntsville, joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
What does this latest move mean for Huntsville and North Alabama?
I think it's a huge victory for the community as it relates to how this city wants to move forward collectively and inclusively. I think it represents a vision for tomorrow as it relates to economic growth, those companies that are looking to move here that want to understand that this is a community that is deeply invested in not just growing economically, but also making sure that the rights of all individuals are respected, that people are engaged, and that people are treated in a way that is respectful to all people, so that these kinds of things, the removal of Confederate symbols, I think is a very powerful statement in their favor.
The University of Alabama removed plaques honoring students who served in the Confederate Army, and the list goes on. What seems to be different about this movement compared to incidents in the past that we're now seeing this type of action?
I think for some time people have literally called for these things to happen, and around the nation we've seen many incidents in which these memorials and these monuments have been moved, and rightly so. These are symbols of oppression. They're symbols of a time past. They're symbols that represent some of the worst things that have ever happened in this nation. And I think it's important to understand that the cry for justice that was initiated by the murder of George Floyd has really incited people in ways that have reminded them about how far we've come, but yet how far we must go. And so I think it's important to look at this as a unifying opportunity for communities, including our own, where people can come together and really work together in order to move forward together in the future.
We're hearing a lot more about the term institutionalized racism lately. How do you explain institutionalized racism?
Thank you for that question, because that's one of the things I don't want to get missed in everything that's happening, whether it's the protests about George Floyd's murder, whether it's the removal of Confederate monuments. These are, in some ways, symbolic gestures of what needs to happen at a much deeper surface. The removal of these visible things, the protests that are very visible things that are happening, is no substitution for what needs to happen with regards to uprooting and dismantling institutionalized and structural racism. The things that create barriers and oppressive activities in the lives of people of color, especially Black people, which means, for example, the issues of mass incarceration in our nation, the fact that the criminal justice system disproportionately jails people who are Black and brown more than any other group of people, yet we only represent 13% of the population. It has a lot to say about where people are accepted in terms of the neighborhoods in which they live and the neighborhoods in which they are shown as available places for home purchases. It has a lot to do with how Blacks are treated in the workplace in terms of promotion opportunities. It has a lot to do with how Blacks are treated in the educational system and whether or not those playing fields are leveled in such a way that people have an equal and fair opportunity. Opportunity presents the chance for equality. Equality presents the chance for equity. And those two things are a little bit different, because when I provide you with an opportunity that is a fair opportunity, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm providing equity in that situation. Equity means that because we're playing in the same game, we have the same tools, and then we have the same opportunities as a consequence of being the same and equal chances, then we can move forward. That's what institutional racism is, and structural racism is, and that's what needs to be dismantled.
Anything else that you would like to share with us tonight?
I would just say I'm very happy to see what's happening in our society today. I mourn with the George Floyd family and the loss of a life of a human being. We watched for 8 minutes and 46 seconds a man's life being taken away. The rallying call for this particular moment came from that tragic death. And if we can learn anything from this experience, it's that we are more united when we recognize, value, and appreciate our differences, seek to stand on common ground, and then bring everybody forward in that process. I think this is a tremendous time that we're living in with tremendous opportunities, and I pray and I hope that the people engaged in this effort now will leverage the future in order to be able to make things better for everyone.
Kenny Anderson, the Multicultural Affairs Officer for the City of Huntsville, thank you so much for your time tonight and insight.
Thanks for having me.